welcome to my studio. So hands up, I'm already guilty. If you have treated yourself to gorgeous art supplies in the past, which have really excited you, and yet somehow seem to now be forgotten in a drawer gathering dust. Definitely me. Is there anyone else? Please tell me I'm not the only one. Well, today I'm going to dig out some of those supplies. We are going to have a play. We are going to see if these old supplies can inspire us all over again. And I'm hoping that you'll feel inspired to do the same. So let's just get going and have fun in the process. The first dusty supply that I shall be getting out today is my pastels. I have quite a collection. I have a few pan pastels, I have these posh soft pastels that I bought in Derwent in the Lake District, I have some of the Jane Davenport ones, and I have some craft artist ones as well. Gorgeous selection, and I have to say I have maybe used, well, some of them I've never used, like the posh pastels, and some of them I've used a handful of times. It's not something I ever reach for. However, recently I have been binge watching Emma from Emma Rule Art on YouTube. She's an amazingly talented artist and she loves her pastels. And having watched her, I was inspired to pull mine out again and have a little play. One of the techniques that she uses is that she does an underpainting using her alcohol markers. Then she adds like a background and a softness with the pastels, and then she renders it or finishes it off using pencils. So that's what I thought I would try. I am playing with Mr. Mole here, and I stamped him out first, coloured him all up, and now I'm sort of trying to create a little bit of a background. In all honesty, I have barely used my pastels and have no idea what I am doing. I clearly need to learn more. So I'm trying to make a bit of a background. I'm sort of thinking we're in a forest, so I'm trying with lots of greens and browns to build up the foreground, and then in my head those random brown lines are trees. So we needed to turn them into something that looked a bit more like trees. So I'm just using this little applicator and creating almost leaf shapes. At this point I was panicking because I was just thinking I have created a complete and utter mess. But let's just trust the process and learn. I did spray this in between, but I failed to show that. I have shown it in other parts. Then I pull out my Prismacolor pencils and start the rendering processes. So this is where we kind of make the trees a bit more definite. If you're a stamper and not an artist, please don't panic by this. You could like completely easily follow this as a tutorial. It's just squiggly lines. So nothing to be scared of. I highly encourage doodling in your journal. It will really open out a new freedom. So definitely recommend that, and you can always use stamps as a base like we have here. I'm trying to give a little bit more definition to these sort of strange tree shape things that we have going on. So I'm using like a turquoise pencil and a green pencil, adding a few little dots. That is one of my major tips for, you know, if you're not sure how the drawing's going, just add a few dots and circles round about it. It just seems to elevate it straight away. And I did finish colouring them all with pencils, but for some reason that footage got destroyed, so I apologise about that. And here we are. I used the fixative at the end. I lied. I used the fixative at the end. And we sprayed him off, and there is that already. So I was excited by that, and because the Jane Davenport pastels look like a makeup palette, I decided that we would sort of give the same sort of system a try, but with a face, and almost use the pastels for the makeup. I know it's been done before, it's nothing new or revolutionary, I have seen other people do it, but I thought we would give that a try. So I stamped this out. This is a stamp from the gorgeous Erica from Stampanori, and I have just coloured in the skin tones with alcohol markers, and also I really wanted the hair nice and bold. I think the ink pad that I'd used was a little bit dry, so we colour in the hair as well. I'm basically just going over the line work that is already there, and I've used a combination of really dark greys, an extremely dark purple and a blue violet sort of colour, so you can't actually see the blues and purples that automatically, it doesn't look like she's got purple hair or anything, but it just gives a lot of tonality. Now I have to say I'm in love with this technique. I just did this and was like, ooh, it's so exciting. It went on so creamy, so smooth. I mean, just look at that blending. I mean, I dream of blending like that. You know, when I get my alcohol markers, that's the sort of blending I like. In fact, I enjoyed it so much that I dipped it in and did it again because it just felt so good. So I am obsessed. This technique we will be playing with a lot more. Because the blend was so beautiful, I decided that let's just do the whole face actually. And so I came in with some skin tones because the marker blending wasn't perfect. So I blended out the face. I also tried to give her some eyeshadow. It wasn't the best image for giving eyeshadow. And I also tried the lips. The lips kind of turned out okay, but they did sort of need a little bit of work with the pencils to really make them pop. So I'm not sure that I would maybe use them for lips in the future. But the purpose of this was for me to get to know my pastels. I wanted to add a little bit of background because these are sort of like forest images, and they are the forest collection from Stampanori. I decided to give her a green background because she's also got sort of like almost like a greenery tattoo on her arm, so I just thought that would work. And I'm also using the pencils now just to add a little bit of sharpness to some of the details. So we are giving her some nice sort of blue-green eyes. I'm neatening up the lips using the pencils. So these are the Faber-Castell Polychromos. These are my new favourite pencils. I bought some from a friend. I may have to buy more. And I then sort of came in with a black fine liner because, again, as I was saying earlier, the stamp detail didn't come out like black. It looked a bit grey and lost, so I wanted to emphasise those eyes and bring them back. Again, this is dead easy. I'm literally just tracing over the artwork of the artist, Erica in this case. Because it's pastels, you can erase. This is actually an electric eraser, but I've lost the cap and the battery, so I was having to do it by hand. But I think I'm going to treat myself to a mechanical eraser. So I'm just kind of erasing little star details and then emphasising that with a few little white dots as well. I think she is absolutely beautiful. And this is definitely a technique that I am going to explore a lot more. And this is there it is all finished. How gorgeous is she? This is the advantage of pulling out your own old supplies and having a play. You can just like reignite your enthusiasm or discover things you didn't know. Now this, I really wanted to play with these posh pastels. I think they cost me about £13 each, but again, I was in an art gallery in Derwent in the Lake District, and the artwork that the woman had produced with these particular pastels was stunning, so I decided to give it a go. I struggled with this one, really struggled with this one. As you can see, I went for a tree because that seems to be my safety option at the minute. I just seem to be obsessed with drawing trees. So we went with that. There's a few things I'm really struggling with. For first, I really don't know how to use them, so I'm going to have to take lessons. I think I'm going to have to consume more YouTube, possibly have a little look on Skillshare for some classes on how to use pastels. All of that bloom, there was like just lots of bloom and dust. I'm not sure if I should have that or not. I'm not sure how to deal with that. I was really struggling to get any form of details, so I pulled out these pencils, which are also an unused item, I think. Again, I bought these on the same trip that I bought the pastels at the Derwent Pencil Museum. And they are pastel pencils, but I thought it would be easier to get detail. And again, although these were pastel pencils, just the bloom that came off them and the dust that came off them, I really struggled with this. I was really fighting with it, and at this point I was just absolutely hating everything and was just having to push through the process. So I was trying different greys and browns and greens. That's one advantage of doing a tree, is that the amount of colours in a tree trunk is quite vast. So I was just trying to blend it together. The other thing I think is I don't really have the proper tools. So again, watching Emma Rule Art, she does have proper tools. And I have enjoyed playing with pastels so much today that I actually think I'm going to invest in some tools. I am going to actually, as you're watching this, I will be in Edinburgh at the Fringe. And every time I go, I always go to the art shops there. So I think I might treat myself to some actual tools for using pastels. So I kind of have these sponges. I don't even think they are proper pastel sponges. I think they're makeup sponges that I just sort of stuck in the drawer. And I have two little ones that almost look like the eyeshadow things that I got in some of the Jane Davenport kits that I had. At this point I gave up. I did put a layer of fixative on it in between, so I wasn't rubbing it, and I came in with my polychromos to just try and sharpen some of those details up. It was looking better. It looked at this point okay-ish. I was beginning to get a bit of tonality. but it still wasn't just popping. So I've pulled out my trusty paint markers and I am bringing these in. So this is the thing. It is okay to learn. This is my journal. I didn't like how it was going. It's good to experiment with new mediums or different mediums and have a play. But if you're not liking it, it's okay to combine it with things that you love so that you are able to get a finished product or a finished piece that you are in love with. You've still learned, you've still got some knowledge that you can take forward into your next practice session with the medium. So I learned a lot doing this tree, even though I had to pull out my trusty paint markers to help finish it. So I did a lot of doodling with black and white. It is okay-ish page, I quite like it, even though it is maybe not my favourite. But I have thoroughly enjoyed exploring pastels, and you will be seeing a lot more of those from me. Next thing, I have an entire box of liquid watercolours. I mean, I use my watercolours a lot, but liquid, in fact, these ones I haven't even swatched. I didn't actually swatch all of the liquid watercolours I own. I decided to play with the Spectrum Noir liquid watercolours. Sorry, tongue-tied. I do have some Ecoline ones, but I believe they correspond with the pens. So I just thought that deserved another playtime of its own. I really struggled. I decided to stamp out this little guy and give him a little paint just to kind of see. He just looks sunburned. Look at him. Poor little thing. He looks a bit sad. I tried not to bring my paint markers out other than the eyes there. What I discovered whilst doing that little thing is that although these are watercolour and they move like watercolour, they stain the paper. So it's kind of like a weird thing. Like, I love my acrylic inks, and I love the acrylic inks because they're permanent, and technically that is kind of what happens here, that really stains the paper. But it's still water reactive, so you've still got the element of it being muddy, whereas when you use your acrylic inks and you layer on top of it, the underneath layer doesn't move. So I just found it a really weird combo, and I was really struggling to get to grips with these. I have to say, I just really struggled with these. So I just kept it really simple. I traced through a circle stencil, add a little bit of spray, and again at this point, because I'm struggling, rather than fight it and get myself all negative and hating the piece, I've come in and pulled out stuff that is more familiar. So I've pulled out some stamps to create a little bit of a background. I've pulled out my paint markers, and I am doodling through a stencil and just kind of put a very quick random page together here. I'm just sort of adding a few little roses. I kind of go in and then add the detail with the black pen. This pretty much is it for this page, and I've still learned. I think this is the thing that we have to kind of go. It's like I have learned that the watercolour inks really stain the page, so you don't have the same movement. So once you have that knowledge, you can try something different going forward. So it's all a little bit of a learning curve. So I'm still really happy with this page, and I've just put life is too short to not to be creative. So it's a good sort of motivational sentiment to keep going with these things. So just again add a few little extra doodles to the page. So I wanted to really explore what makes these unique over just general watercolours. So I decided to try and create a background. This time I just used a pipette and just dropped the watercolour, liquid watercolour onto the page, and just put little dots all over the page to create a nice, quick and easy background. I stuck with ones that tonally would go together, so that when they blend and mix, we're not going to get any horrible mud sort of colours. So I sprayed it, and at this point I was quite liking it because watercolour does this sort of like funny cauliflower effect. It did that, but in a slightly different way. Here's where I made a mistake. I decided there was too much ink on the page and decided to mop it up. In doing that, I ended up creating a background that I could have created with normal watercolour, because we didn't have those sort of fancy like dark. I think normally when you get the cauliflower effects, it's from the water, so it goes lighter, but because these were liquid watercolours, the cauliflower effects were darker, if that makes sense. So because we'd lost that, I just decided to add a few more drops in and give them a spray just to try and emulate that. But I have learned for future not to kind of mop it up. I then just pull out a few elements from my Aquatic Adventures collection. We've got this like little hammerhead shark, and we've got some corals and leaves and little fish, different things. And I just, actually, those leaves are from, they're not leaves, they're the mermaid's tail that I chopped off in last week's video. So we just kind of add this and build up a little scene. I so wanted to do my shading with what I'm familiar with, but I decided, oh, we kind of neaten it up first. I decided to do that using the liquid watercolours again. So I'm trying to create a sort of grey tint. I mix a little bit of the blue, a little bit of the black and loads of water to try and create a tint. And again, the fact that it stains the paper just really bit me in the bum. I couldn't get that nice soft edge, because normally with watercolour, even if you get a harsh edge, you can come in with water and soften it, but I couldn't do that. So I ended up pulling out my pan pastels. Who'd have thought that I would go to pastels for the rescue? But since I have discovered them, this is one thing with this video, I have really fallen in love with my pastels. I had seen somebody else use pastels pastels to soften a watercolour background. So I did that again and kind of brought almost like the bubble effect. Fixed that, and then again, once again, brought out my acrylic markers and created sort of a bubble effect. So this really is mixed media page. I have really learned in this video mixed media colouring, and I've always sort of done that, but it's been watercolour and pencils, or it's been alcohol marker and pencils, but I'm really mixing up a lot more different mediums, and it has been so much fun. Overall, I think this page is okay. It's not my most favourite one that I have done in this video, but I'm quite happy with the results. Decide to give the liquid watercolours one last go. And I'm going to do one of my favourite techniques, and the reason that I thought this would work is we are going to create a bit of a galaxy style painting. I love doing this. I have multiple videos on my channel. There's one where I create a galaxy 3 different ways with watercolours, with alcohol markers and with acrylic paint. So I thought the advantage of this would be is that these are obviously much more intense than watercolours. The nature of watercolours is they dry lighter, they sort of fade as they dry, and so you lose that punch of it being really dark and really vibrant. So I was thinking this would work really well. So I do my normal colours, and then I'm just really able to, especially when it came to those like black, dark purples and black, I was just able to drop them in with a pipette into certain places and really darken up the edges. And so I just did this and then left it for quite a while to dry, and look at that, it's absolutely stunning. A bit later I will show you what I do with this, but how I've done one in the past with just general watercolours, and you can see the difference. So I decided to put it over the page that we had the girl on, because obviously the alcohol markers have seeped through, but we can cover that nicely with this. I'm taking a stamp from the Enchanted Forest collection. This is the Woodland Dwellings stamp set. Not going to see much now because I am embossing it with white embossing powder. So once that comes off, we can watch the magic of heat embossing. There we go. Look, it's not as exciting as watching gold, but I really like white for this particular technique. So what I'm doing is pulling out some gesso and just really watering this down. And the gesso is semi-transparent, and that is what gives the punch to this particular effect. So I come in, and almost all the shadow areas that you would normally use your darker colour, I am using a white just to make that a bit solid. Because it is still watercolour, it still reacts with water, so we've got the intensity of the fact it's a liquid watercolour, which is keeping it nice and dark and has stained the paper, but it is also still blending with the gesso, so we are still getting these different sort of pink and purple and blue hues as we add the gesso, which I think just gives this a gorgeous ethereal magical look, which is why I absolutely love this particular technique. Because it's a galaxy, we need to add lots of stars, so I'm using my paint pen to do that. I also just sort of make some of the elements of the picture a little bit more opaque by colouring directly with the pen, and it just makes certain elements of the particular painting really stand out. Like the leaves, I wanted them to look like leaves and different things. And then finally we take some of the little dots that we have put into the background and turn them into stars just by doing a little crossing motion with them. I love the galaxy effect. And this is what I mean. This is one I did in the past the exact same way, but I just used traditional watercolours, and you can see how much more intense the liquid watercolours are. So I struggled with the liquid watercolours. There was times I really didn't enjoy myself, but I love this, and so I think it's worth playing with. We're going to do our last page now, and I am going to play with these magical mica powders. I love mica powders, and we've done a lot on this channel. In fact, they've been some of my most popular videos on how to use mica powders, and yet they have been sat there for years and I have not had a play. So again, I'm going down the tree route. I just sprayed water and dragged it out with a paintbrush. This time I'm just going to add mica powders into a little bit of a palette. You add a little bit of water and then you can turn it into a solid paint. So you can create backgrounds, but you can also create like a paint wash. So I'd stamped down that little door, but I wanted to turn it into a tree, and so I created this paint with it, and I just thingied in the background. I did feel, because I had used the brush to pull out the colour, I'd lost that softness, and the actual thing that makes these sort of, well, the powders are actually called magical, but the thing that makes them magical is the way they sort of splay out and the colours break apart. So I wanted to put that, and I love the way that green has gone down the tree. I just think that is so forest-like. That is actually what trees look like, isn't it? They've got the green in. So once again, I am pulling out my Prismacolor pencil. They're not Prisma, Polychromos pencils, just to add the details, like getting the colour in the mushrooms and things like that. I mean, look at that. I love the way the mica powders have created that softness to the edge of the tree. Absolutely stunning. And just using my white pen for the final details, the dots on the mushroom, a little bit of doodleage and highlight just to kind of lift the area that we have, and absolutely really love this. This product, mica powders, could have a whole video of their own, and I think that will be coming, because as I started playing, I was like, I really want to play more. But I'd honestly been filming for about 2 days at this point to create this video, and I couldn't really get away with doing any more pages. So I think that will be another video to come, but I absolutely love how that turned out. It is completely magical. So as an overview of what we've done, we used our pastels to create this little mole effect by mixing it with alcohol markers. We tried to use our posh pastels but struggled, so then brought in familiar things like pencils and acrylic markers. We created gorgeous makeup look using our pastels here. We actually had a successful liquid watercolour painting by the fact it stained the paper and creating this ethereal look. We did some swatching, which is always beneficial. And we created a little sunburnt hedgehog, but never mind, we have learnt from it. This really fun background, again combining watercolours and stamping and stenciling. Again, a background with our watercolours, but we rescued it with pan pastels. And finally, a gorgeous tree created using mica powders. Wow, 9 pages! I can't believe we have done 9 pages in the journal. I got so engrossed in using these forgotten supplies as I rekindled my joy for them. I've had an absolute blast, but do you know what? I have not even touched half of the supplies that I had on my list to play with in this video. So let me know if we want to do a part 2. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you're inspired to get your supplies out as well, and I will see you next Friday.